Rise and shine on Australia's Vision Christian Radio.
Welcome to Rise and Shine with Fel and Andy. And this is the time when we always dig into the Bible together because it's really important to be reading the Bible, but it can feel a bit tough, can't it, Andy?
At times, but I'm really excited about today, Phil, because we're reading the book of Joshua. Now, there's 66 books in the Bible. Joshua is in the Old Testament, but it's a book, Phil, that since I've become a new Christian a couple of years ago, I've just loved the book of Joshua.
If you're trying to find it, you go Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. So it's pretty early on in the story, but there's a bit that's happened already, and we see Joshua, he's about to step up into leadership. Like, it's a pretty exciting time.
It's a great book, Phil. But let me ask you, if I say to you, Phil, the book of Joshua, what comes to mind? What do you think of?
Yeah, well, look, my son's name's Josh. So Joshua was named after literally this guy in the Bible. And we named him Joshua because he's a really inspirational person. You're going to read some of his story. And he spends time, you see him quite young, getting to know God. So he's there with Moses when Moses is spending time in the presence of God. And Moses has to go about and do lots of other things. He has to administer everybody around him. But Joshua stays behind, and you see him spending really time with God. And it's from that relationship that we see him now being ready to lead the children of Israel. He's pretty inspirational.
Yeah, he is. For me, I just think of a guy stepping up and just doing stuff. Not that he thought of it. He wasn't a self-made man. God told him to do it. Yeah. But he literally takes this group of people called the Israelites who were former slaves, and he charges into a part of the world which, from the Bible, we see it was very sophisticated, it was advanced. It wasn't a backward part of the world. It was a very advanced, sophisticated part of the world. And Joshua and the people of God charge in there. And I think of the city of Jericho, the walls coming down. I see them crossing the River Jordan. And at one point there, Joshua's commanding the sun to stand still. You know, he's a soldier, he's a warrior, he's a leader. A lot of battles. As a guy, I love a battle story, Phil. And that's what comes to mind when I think of Joshua. It's a book of adventure, it's a book of faith, and it's a book of stepping out.
I remember my son Josh, so Josh is now 15, but I remember when he was about 10, and he said, I want to read. Can you give me a devotion? So we handed him this little devotion and he went away with his Bible and he decided he was going to write notes. The first devotion he opened up to was Joshua 1, and we're going to read this verse the next couple of days, but talking about being strong and of great courage and God commanding you to go out and do wonderful things with what he's called you to do. And for Josh, how inspiring. Like, that was the very first thing that came alive to him in the Bible, and you can see God working through that. So I think no matter if you're young or old, this is a book that's inspiring to you because it shows someone who knows his God and therefore is able to do mighty works as a result of it. And we can do the same today.
Yeah, and it's a great book because it's full of stories. And if you are new to the Bible, the part of the Bible I found really hard to read, and still do, to be honest, is all the laws and the statutes and the real estate distribution. Because God literally gave his people land and he said, right, you've got this, you've got that. But Joshua is easy to read because it's stories, and they're great stories and they're memorable stories. I mean, another one that comes to mind, Phil, is the story of Rahab the harlot. We'll get into that in a few days' time as well. But it's just this incredible story about a woman who gets saved, and she's not the most virtuous person in her city. She's a woman of the night. That's one way of framing it. And yet she's the only one in this whole city who turns to the Lord, and she becomes a hero in the Bible. So if you love a good story, if you love a good yarn, and if you're inspired by adventure, you know, by people just stepping up and stepping out and doing amazing things for God and with God, this is a good book to read, isn't it, Phil?
This is the place to be. And I am excited as we dig into it because it's a pretty exciting time in the history of the Bible as well. And we'll talk a bit about this next time. But really, if you think about it, you might know a guy called Moses. You might know the fact that there were children of Israel and they were in slavery in Egypt. Moses comes and he introduces them to God, really. And as a result, they spend 40 years in the desert, come to the banks of the promised land. They're really ready now to go and take what God has promised so many years ago, even to Abraham, who we'll introduce you to in the next couple of days. But it's an amazing story.
It is. And you know, putting it into modern context, like, it's funny that even now in the Middle East, they're still fighting over this land.
Yeah.
Like, here we are thousands of years later. But we know from the Bible that this is God's people and this is their ancestral lands, and God gave them this land thousands of years ago in the days of Joshua. So hopefully you'll be with us over the next few days. Encourage you to tune into this podcast as often as you can, because we promise you there's adventure, as I said, there's faith, there's battles, there's great stories, and there's great individuals who rise up in this book of Joshua.
And best of all, it's all true.
That's right.
This is a historical book. It's been written down so we can learn from it. So we're really excited. We'll be going more into Joshua in the coming days, but that's a bit of an overview just to whet your appetite for things to come on Rise and Shine.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.